Hi, my name is Ella Hanafi, and for my biology video, I decided to look at the environmental issue of overfishing. To start off, I'd like to explain what the actual definition of overfishing is. Basically, overfishing is the rapid overfarming of fish from the oceans and seas that can be naturally reproduced in the same length of time. This leads to rapid depletion in fish populations and it causes major negative impacts on our waters. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the negative impacts that overfishing has. The first one being bycatch. Bycatch refers to the fish that are caught up in nets that are intended for a specific breed. The most common example of this would be dolphins getting caught up in tuna nets. Bycatch usually happens in the cases when super trawlers are used. Basically, super trawlers are these really big ships that are intended to catch fish and then store them on board in big refrigerators to preserve them. This means that these ships can be out at sea for longer rather than smaller ships that have to take the catch back to land and then go back out while the trawlers are able to remain at sea. Next impact that it has are damaged food chains. Basically, when areas are overfished, essential predators and prey are removed from the food chain. This means that creatures above and below them are also impacted. Sharks are one of the most cited examples suffering from the practice of overfishing. Basically, when sharks are overfished, their prey, for example, stingrays, increase in population. This carries over into the next levels on the food chain as more rays means fewer shellfish and other smaller fish species, which just completely messes up the food chains within our waters. I'm not only talking about the food chains within our waters, but also eventually this will also affect our food chain as there won't be enough fish to sustain our eating habits. The last impact I'm going to talk about is financial loss. Basically, on the human side of the equation, these large-scale fishing operations significantly deplete the amount of fish available within our seas and oceans, and this ends up harming smaller-scale local fishing industries, which means that they're not able to make money and will eventually go out of business. Next, I'm going to talk about what we can do to prevent overfishing. The first thing that we can do to prevent overfishing is to implement fishing quotas. Basically, fishing quotas are rules and regulations that are set by the government in the European Union that tell the fishing industry how much fish they're allowed to catch and when they're allowed to catch them. This significantly reduces the amount of biodiversity loss that we have within our oceans and overall improves their ecosystem. The next thing that we can do is to stop supporting big companies and rather smaller and local fisheries and fishermen. This gives these companies an equal chance to compete within the industry, and it also forces the big companies to stop overfishing due to the lack of demand. Lastly, something that we can do to prevent overfishing is to create more protected areas within our water in which fishing is prohibited. This would allow those environments to bounce back from the damage that they've sustained from the fishing industry. Lastly, before I finished my video, I just wanted to say a few words about why I decided to look at overfishing. Basically, I decided to look at overfishing because I feel that it is a very overlooked environmental issue and it is way more important than the government and a lot of environmental groups have made it out to be. I first became aware about how big of an impact overfishing was when I watched the documentary Seaspiracy last year during our geography class. I definitely recommend watching Seaspiracy on Netflix if you want to educate yourself more about the fishing industry and how harmful it actually is to our environment. Thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed.